This video was funded by viewers like you. Hey fellow mobs, Moby here. Welcome back to Armored Legends. This time, I invited 9 of the most well-known melee players in the PC scene to share their strategies, build, and tech. Although all these players subscribe to a style that focuses on melee, they all have different methods of achieving victory. Despite using a disadvantaged and difficult playstyle, no one can deny that there is a thrill to slaying your opponents in glorious melee combat. Melee is not known to be the most competitively viable style. Can you tell me why that is?
Melee isn't very competitively viable, but it's not the most unviable thing out there. Melee by design is intended to have shortcomings to make up for the big damage numbers and execution playstyle.
It's definitely possible to consistently make it into top 8 or maybe even top 3 in the tourney scene, but that's almost entirely dependent on the other entrants in the tourney.
Melee's main problem is shields, unless melee users can find a way to bypass shields with the melee weapons. But until then, melee weapons will not be competitively viable. Zim shields at like almost all stages of AC6 since its launch, it has been meta and will probably continue to be meta.
I think melee is very close to viable. However, I do think that modern Zim shields and lambs, if played perfectly, can't be beat by my build.
Vertical movement, the tracking on melees is not that great when it comes to vertical. Like if it works great. But against players that know how to deal with it, it's not going to work that well.
It's because of engagement cost. You have to spend so much health, you have to spend so much build, like even weight. You have to compromise on so many things to successfully approach any viable build. To catch a Lammergeier kite, you need to be essentially weightless. And so every heavy build rolls you. It's soul crushing.
Melee forces you to commit at least one weapon slot and a booster if you plan to use it in any way other than punish. It really comes down to the fact that melee moves in extremely predictable patterns. So if someone sees you having melee in the load-up screen and also notices, hey, they have Kikaku or Flugel, they already know exactly what one of your game plans is going to be, so they can actually bait and counter around that from the first second, which is a bit of an issue considering that your movement is linear.
There's also the fact that assault boosting can counter melees by having impact bonus on offense and defense. Melee boosting does not offer the same impact reduction when swinging, hence the greater risk. A lot of guns will also just have more firepower and impact to outperform melees for every swing it does before overheating. This corners melee weapons' utility to just being a stagger punish, as that's the only time that your rival can't retaliate.
Well, there are two main things. First one is latency. Can absolutely fuck over some melee combos. Sometimes some people can just straight up ignore stagger. Melee builds mostly rely on getting most of their damage into the staggered opponent. And then the second thing is just such a mountain of bugs in this game. And especially with my build using a chainsaw, there are whole rituals I need to perform before I can actually land a successful attack.
So why do you play it?
Melee is, for me, it's the most satisfying way to play the game. And the skill ceiling is super duper high, so even like 400 hours playing the same build, I'm still learning new stuff. It still feels like there's more to learn, there's more game to play.
Cause it's fun, lol.
Nothing really stuck or felt as exciting or fun to play with despite its downfalls.
Because it's fun, it looks cool. For me, Melee is about the chase. It's some of the best games that I've had like for my own fun. Heck, even Lamb matchup, which normally I hate, is still fun because there's a chase. And whether I win or lose, I still get however long the match is of fun just tunneling after them. If I catch them, they die, but if they make it so I can't catch them, I die. It becomes this kind of life and death gamble that it's just so much fun for me.
Above all else, it's just the complete freedom of movement, because compared to every other build in the game, there is just nothing else that moves like it.
I play it because I like the Coral Blade. Like, you can see my earlier builds in other streamers stream, like Oro. I was just hunting Oro for a lot. So then I decided, you know what, let me use this build on other people, see how it is. And it was doing great.
Played it during Ranked Season 1 to prove that the Oscillator and Smoke, which were extremely slept on for the longest of times, are actually really good weapons. I consider them A tier, and I wanted to prove that they were really good, so I was playing them last season, and my best result yet was Ranked 91 in the top 100 leaderboard.
But you want to know why? Bullets are cringe. You hit the guy. Why would you spend money hitting the man when you could just hit the man? I like speed. I like big numbers, dude. I like big damage. I like schmoving. Every single moment that I've ever had clipped has been because of the intensity and the sheer like player expression that Melee allows. Every single Melee user is going to approach differently. You can tell both people using the same build when it's someone like Bort or it's someone like Thermidor running the Dagger. Thermidor would play Dagger totally different from how Bort would. It's just such a pure form of player expression. Kites, every kite plays the same. You're holding W and spacebar. Or sorry, S and spacebar. My apologies. I don't know what that button is. I don't press that one very much. So not very familiar with that one.
Okay, let's quickly review what basic melee canceling is. It's the act of canceling your melee attack with a quick boost. If you have the right booster for it, you'll go faster than a regular quick boost or even assault boost. This also makes you home into the opponent and can be chained until your energy runs out. Believe it or not, melee canceling is not a bug or an exploit. It is a real promoted combat style in the Armored Core 6 official player's guidebook. Nutty, huh? I initially chose Dagger in PvE. I never swapped it off in 1,000 hours. At the time, I rationalized it as because other melee would lose me my movement if I hit someone, and I wanted to move fast. Zimmerman because Zimmerman. I didn't know it was strong in PvE. I just like shotguns. Even if it was weak, I need it because the niche it fills in is perfect. Being able to joust with melee and have a quick burst on a long cooldown is vital to lowering my engagement time. I can get out all my damage out quick before retreating somewhere safer. The shoulders have always been flex slots. I'm running hux on one shoulder and have rotated to other shoulder parts such as drones, dual missiles, split missiles, and a second hux. The reason why I haven't run 2 hux sleeves in the past is because I wanted to be quirky. 4 weapons is cooler than 3, but I also thought it would give me more avenues of expressions. More buttons to press equals more fun. I do think it's a bit reductive to think of melee canceling and related tech in a vacuum. People see melee canceling and ask, why not just AB? Because you have more buttons, not less. Melee gives the user a freedom of movement that no other AC has, and augments the other movement tools already in the game such as QB and AB. I think good melee players should be seen less by how good they melee and more by how they integrate it into their other tools. One key property of melee is that they can transition in and out of any other movement state in the game, at any time you like. Normally you can't AB during a QB, but you can melee during a QB and AB during a melee. So if you have a melee weapon in your hand, suddenly the transitive property means that you can now AB in the middle of your QB. Every transition involving melee or AB will pivot your AC on target, so switching movement states is valuable to accurately homing into your opponents. One of the first tricks I learned was melee canceling with AB, then transitioning into kick. The opponent would dodge, anticipating the melee that wouldn't happen, then they would be roll caught by the kick. They can adapt and dodge late, but now I could just melee. Or perhaps they're really fast and can dodge out. Then I don't have to commit to that kick. Instead, I could ride the AB and zim them, or transition back into melee, then into anything else. So out of any action, I have a lot of freedom for mix-ups, and access to my whole kit at all times because of melee. Everything intuitively works and is flexible. Pre-canceling basically just gives you your initial melee thrust into your next action. It's a subset of melee canceling and carries all its properties. Performed by inputting your cancel briefly before the startup of your dash, this will work regardless of angle or lock-on, and allows you to perform a lot of tricks you otherwise couldn't do. Being able to boost up is really useful. Pre-canceling unlocks the Y-axis for melee users, and a proficient user can move vertically better than any other build in the game. I could find my way out of many tricky situations such as under an AoE weapon or hammer, and I could chase vertical kite better than before. But it's not just about moving up. The kicks I mentioned earlier can also be performed to track targets a good 50 meters above or below you. You could use them grounded to benefit your jump boost, do wacky things like rat with melee. It still carries the properties of melee, so you can transition in and out of any other movement state, imparting that velocity each time. Any melee movement can instead be performed with pre-cancel, and any movement tech can still be accessed without having to fully commit to the pre-cancel. It's there that the Y utility lies. Unlike other tech that may animation lock you or have a niche use, you can integrate this into your movements seamlessly. You already do it, you already melee cancel. I'm also trying to stress that the utility of pre-cancel comes in not having to commit to it. You could change your mind and instead choose to perform melee cancels or slingshots after pressing the button. Of course, this is all just scratching the surface, but in the interest of time, I gotta get a move on. The combo game is really complicated and contextual, and what you do is entirely dependent on the game state, and too large to fit in my segment. But a few setups you should be aware of are extensions, wall combos, and extendo combo. Dagger is unique because it can be used both as an opener and as a closer. If you stagger with Dagger, you can wait a moment, then zim to allow Dagger to reset and then close the combo with Dagger. During any Zim extension, you will have the opportunity to fire your shoulder weapon if you haven't already. This extension can only be performed with Zim and, weirdly, Coral Missile, as all other ranged extensions are too slow. Wall combos can be performed within 50 meters of a wall, and the map border counts. Perform this by pushing someone into a wall with a ranged extension, and the stun will last long enough to land another 3 daggers. You can tack this extension onto the end of the traditional combo as a Dagger 1-2, Zim, Dagger 1-2-3. They're typically always worth going for, unless you can perform the next combo. The next combo is the Extendo. The Extendo combo can be performed anywhere, but only if you stagger with Dagger 1 as your opener. You can then follow through with Dagger 2, pull back for an extension, and Dagger 1-2-3 as a true combo. Afterwards, you can still have access to Kick as a pseudo combo into more aggression. This works by effectively spreading out your melee extension as 2, 1, 3, locking them in place for longer. With the right shoulder weapons, you can even one-shot tanks with this. A lot of my neutral play into tanks involves setting up this combo and ensuring I have the shoulders ready to one-shot them. If you're familiar with Smash Bros, you may know about kill confirms, and how they can be performed at specific percentages. Hitting the 300 impact threshold on Dagger is difficult, but there are many impact combos that allow you to confirm it at different stagger levels, and knowing these will allow you to threaten the Extendo combo at a much larger range, as long as your last hit is that 300 impact Dagger.
Hello, my name is Faust Cannon, or just Faust. I'm a service advisor at the dealership. This is my first Armored Core game actually, and since it released, I haven't played much else. It's just so much fun, and the movement reminds me much of the old Hawking game. I initially seeked out the ACD community because I had an interest in PvP after finishing the campaign 3 times. Then I was introduced to Striker's community through his 1K major, which was my first tourney. I used Wurger, Dagger, Smoke, and Bafal. I've always taken a liking to how cool Wurger and Dagger go together, and it just so happened they synergize extremely well. I picked up Smoke after hitting a wall in my early build, and I didn't really know what to do, and then I met Pandaman. He introduced me to Smoke, and as for Bafal, its main purpose is to have range compression so I don't get ratted easily. So the list of techniques I use almost every game is Dagger, Slingshot, Swing Boosting that I learned from Disco, Reverse Dagger that I've made but I'm still working on, Jump Cancel Wurger, the 300 meter Dagger or the 1200 kilometer Dagger that people know it by, the Melee Cancel and the Pre-Cancel that Bort taught me, and then Corkscrew Dagger that I made myself. So Dagger Slingshot, I use that to get around the most. What you do is you charge the Dagger, and then right as the flash comes and you start getting momentum, you cancel it with a QB or an AB, and it'll cause your AC to move extremely fast regardless of the weight. The technique is based off the QB duration, not of anything else. It covers a whole lot of distance extremely fast, and it's really good for mix-ups. The one that I did make was Reverse Dagger, so this one I've been labbing it a lot. Essentially, this is a tool to get around shields. It's a camera manipulation technique. What you do is, while you're in AB, you strafe to the left and then you strafe to the right, and this will cause their camera to move while their shield is up. And in that small amount of frames where they move, Dagger will go flying by them, and the beginning of the hitbox will hit behind the shield or to the side of the shield before the frames adapt to the new position, and it'll break their stat. A simpler one is Jump Cancel Wurger. Essentially, during AB, you press spacebar to jump cancel out of AB, and then you let go of Wurger. It's a way to bypass the AB stopping animation, and it comes out extremely fast, and it's really hard to predict. So the 300 meter Dagger, during AB, cancel it with QB forward, and then with the Dagger charge, it would build up enough speed to cross 300 meters. Like total of 300 meters, but the Dagger would go, I think, about 1200 feet, whatever the speed measurements are. So the Corkscrew Dagger, this one's a little bit different. Essentially, if someone is boosting over you or flying over you and then they try to deadfall under you, if you AB and then immediately cancel your AB with the Dagger charge, you will kind of get a drift, but you retain the momentum from the AB, and it'll send your AC flying the same speed as the 1200 meter Dagger, the 300 meter Dagger. And it's a really good way to cover distance extremely fast, and it's also pretty hard to predict. So my core parts include the Ephemera helmet, the Mind Alpha chest, Basho arms, and the Howl legs. This gave me the most optimal weight to stability ratio while also keeping a pretty good amount of speed. I'm also using Flugel rather than Kikaku because I do rely on mobility before Kikaku canceling. You're more so relying on the Dagger Sling itself and easily the other techs that I had listed before. So internals, I do use the Oscillator, and then this is going to catch a lot of people off guard. I do use Sandtai over an energy generator. You would think because of the single worker you want the damage boost. However, because of how strong Worger is and how you only really use the charge, you might use the uncharged shot every now and then, but it gives you the most combo potential and the most mobility. So it really does make up for it over the light damage nerf. I think it's only like 6%. So your bread and butter for every matchup is always going to be the Dagger charge, immediately followed up by a Worger charge. This deals exactly 2050 stab damage, so 2050 stab damage. So you're going to stagger most builds if you land both of those consecutively, and after that you can combo directly after Dagger. Your Dagger cooldown will be back up. And from there, that's where a lot of the mix-ups come into play, depending on what your matchup is. Most bipeds, I can just go into Worger charge, into Dagger charge, into a 3 Dagger hit, into a kick, and then Assault Armor, or I can back off or whatever. They're usually dead by then. But once you get into heavier matchups like a tank or a really heavy biped, and they obviously have over 20-50 stability, then you have to go for a bit more mix-ups. For the tank, if you can dagger them, of course, Worger charge, Dagger charge, you go for the Dagger 2 hit, so first and second hit. On the second hit, there's an opening where you're kind of guaranteed to hit whatever you want. I'll either go for a Worger charge to knock them back or a kick to knock them back. And from there, I will switch to the Pafao, and while I'm doing that combo, I'll charge the Pafao and shoot it while they're away, so that way I can still get my damage and safely back off. Because then most times, like if you're running against a tank and they have something like an LCD or LCB, you really don't want to be in their face because you're not going to kill them in one hit. And the same thing applies for shield players, because if I don't break that shield, I gotta get away from them while still getting the most amount of damage in that stagger. I guess in terms of the main meta right now, against lambs, generally speaking, you always want to go for the AP leapers. Lambs are always never going to want to be close to you, and with having such short range weapons, what I'll do is I'll utilize smoke to create cover, and that way they can't target me, and then poke them down with Pafao until I get the lead. They will be forced to come in closer, and from there, you can punish them with the Dagger charge, or you can keep ratting them. It's up to you, but once you get that AP lead, it is hard for lambs to come back unless they're really, really good. Another matchup, I would say this one is a struggle if you don't know what you're doing, is the kite matchup. So anything like a knock kite or like the Ransetsu kite or whatever, if you're starting out, you're going to have trouble catching kites at first because all they do is backpedal and spacebar, they'll dodge back into you. That's where the Dagger slingshot really comes into play, and also the corkscrew dagger. Essentially, whenever you do go in, you can slingshot yourself within distance. I want to say about 200 meters distance, and you start your Dagger charge. You can slingshot and you'll cover immediately the max 150 meters, and you'll be in their face. And it doesn't matter where they dodge to, you're gonna hit them with that Worger, and they're so squishy that once you hit them with the Worger, you immediately get AP lead. But you can chain slings, and it'll just keep so much pressure that they really can't get away, and so they get out of position, and then you land a charge. Your main tool to catch kites is the slingshot cancel into a Worger shot, and they really can't react to it fast enough. The main thing I do want to say with kites is if you get the AP lead, they don't really know what to do once you drop smoke, and that's a pretty good and easy way to take advantage of them. Let's say you drop smoke and they shoot missiles. If the smoke is between you, you don't even have to be inside it. If the smoke is between you and the missiles, it's gonna miss. And if they're inside the smoke, because some people are smart, they'll get inside the smoke so they can ignore the lock-on. If they shoot missiles inside the smoke, they're still not gonna hit you because they're gonna fly. As long as they touch the smoke, they go flying by it. And so I guess the last two matchups I do want to cover is the tank matchup and then the Zim shield matchup. The tank shield matchup I want to say is my favorite. That one is because they take so many hits, man, and they don't really die in one hit. So it's like you really got to work for the kill. What I'll typically do is I'll poke them down with Pafao, drop smoke, kind of kite them a bit, get them into a good position. A lot of the times they'll try to AB or to try to get closer, and you can really take advantage of tank movement. Or if it's a boat, you can also take advantage of the lack of energy capacity they use to QB. And from there, it's such a big target. You land a Dagger charge into a Worger charge. It won't always stun them, but if you do that, it'll completely throw off their momentum, and you can keep following up with charges or Dagger charges and kicks. It's just so fun, man. And most of the time they don't die in one combo. That's when you go for those safer combos. This is Zim shield. This one is my hardest matchup, of course, because of the Zim shield. It used to be that I would auto lose. I'll try to hit him with the charge, try to hit him with the Worger and anything like that, and they just IG it. However, since the reverse dagger now lets me hit behind shield, it's a lot easier to build up that stagger and build up that pressure. I'll try to go for the reverse dagger to knock the shield at least once, and then back off for a bit, go for either uncharged Worger or uncharged Pafao to get the stagger retaining, and I'll go back and do it again. But a lot of it relies on breaking that shield or getting the stagger and getting the AP lead first.
Hi, I'm Sirchby, or Cypher as people refer to me in-game. I come from Indonesia, an island in Southeast Asia. I do freelancing stuff for a living, particularly 3D modeling, game modding, and video editing. Armored Core 3 was the first in the series that I played when I was a grade schooler. I also play Ace Combat and War Thunder. The first community that I came by is actually the Rubicon Fight Club, where I basically trained myself to play PvP against random people back when matchmaking didn't exist yet. It progressed from there when I finally decided to enter Striker's Tournament with my Pile Bunker build. I used the PB033M Ashmead Pile Bunker as my primary weapon and movement. It wields tremendous damage and comeback potential. It has the highest alpha damage in the game, meaning that the damage delivered on the first strike is second to none. Unlike, say, the Laser Slicer, if the opponent activates the Pulse Armor too late, they'll suffer the full brunt of its charge attack. Plus, there have been numerous cases where my opponent had an 80% AP lead over me, only to be Uno reversed, as their entire health bar vanishes in the blink of an eye. To assist in building up stagger for the Pile Bunker, I have the Harris Linear Rifle and the Majestic Bazooka. Harris is effective as a harassing weapon because of its fast bullet velocity, but its main feature is the 1250 instantaneous impact damage via charge shot. Even the most heavily armored builds in the game will accrue almost half their attitude stability from it. I just gotta build up the other half before I do a charge shot. The Majestic deals 850 accumulative impact and serves as a way to counter highly lethal CQC tanks from a distance. While not as fast as the Harris, it has a large hitbox. Because the Pile Bunker is so powerful, I don't have to go all in on firepower and thus can sport a PS shield to handle aggressive builds. It's good, it's versatile, can block stun guns, negate micro stuns, and diffuse laser damage. Since lasers are attack sided, it's better to block those than to evade. The Kick Bunk or the Kikaku Bunk refers to the ability to pile bunk at high speed from a distance. There are several different ways to achieve this, from the basic QB Bunk using NGI or PO4 boosters to the more advanced AB Bunk using the Bürzel or the Alulu boosters. The downsides to these is that their range is rather limited. What sets my Kick Bunk apart is the ability to hard bunk a target from a long distance, all the way up to 225 meters, while there's no latency issues of course. I use the Ashmead's light attack to launch my AC forward via melee boost, allowing me to go up to 750 meters per second. Melee boost's momentum carries over to the next quick boost, which helps perform the aerial bunk. Then I follow up with a quick boost to cancel my melee boost so that I can initiate my charged bunk attack. Melee boost's momentum carries over with the quick boost, and that contributes in performing aerial bunk with ease. Well, you can't kick bunk without the Kikaku. Kikaku sucks at everything but melee thrust and assault boosts, so I consider these two as my primary means of movement. Kikaku's assault boost EN cost is surprisingly the cheapest out of all boosters, so you can shuffle if necessary. How far you can melee bunk heavily depends on how light you are. The boost speed is actually an accurate indicator to determine how far you could kick bunk. 290 boost speed will extend the distance to 225 meters. That's my baseline. I strongly discourage building an AC with less than 280 boost speed, as it significantly decreases the strike range. Any slower, and it's better to go heavyweight and instead use QB or AB bunk as it's more efficient. My AC assembly is based on many of these compromises, as I require my weight to be light enough to achieve at least 290 of boost speed, while medium enough to tank some shots. For this, I use Melander parts for the head, core, and legs, which offer fair stats for its weight. Basho arms is mandatory. With 158 melee spec, you want to maximize as much damage as possible for the Pile Bunker. Santai is the gold standard for melee builds. It holds enough EN to perform 6 straight melee boosts or 7 quick melee boosts. A supply efficiency of 3500 doesn't really hinder recovery, at least in practice for me, as I have a shield to cover the downtime. I use the Oscillator FCS to land shots reliably at close range, since I'm running a melee build anyway. But it's not uncommon to land shots using the Majestic at a target well over double of Oscillator's range against a tank or a quad. Assault armor is highly recommended, as you don't want all that stagger buildup and melee punish to end up being blocked by pulse armor activation. I only have one specific combo and it's integral to kick bunk. By firing the Majestic early at the start of the match, I could gain an impact advantage over the opponent. Once the Majestic hits, fire the charge shot, stagger the opponent, then finish the combo by landing the kick bunk. Inexperienced opponents will be struck down quickly, but players who have experience fighting the kick bunk build will preemptively pop PA to mitigate the damage. That is a time when AA should be deployed. Don't even think about saving AA. There's only 2 ways to use it anyway. 1, to disrupt pulse armor, 2, to do more damage after a charged bunk, which is honestly unreliable. Since 9 out of 10 players use pulse armor anyway, it's better to use assault armor to eliminate the enemy expansion instead. You can also do this by melee boosting towards the target and detonating AA as close as you can. Heavyweight brawlers, usually with 2 Zimmermans, can outstagger me with ease. I would play defensively and QB to evade the Zims as much as I can. If I manage to pile bug the opponent and they pop their pulse armor to counterattack and charge at me, I can detonate assault armor in response and come out of that interaction with a significant advantage. They also probably take 2 charge bunks to destroy. Medium weights usually only require 1. Lightweight kites such as land kites demand aggressive but evasive mobility. Although melee boost chaining is viable, I prefer using Kikaku's efficient AB to fly directly under them. AB travels faster vertically, and being directly under kites prevents certain weapons from reaching you. Once I'm in position, I'll AB right towards the target and go for the combo. Against melee, it really depends on what I'm fighting against. Dual melee players can be a nightmare to dodge, but since melee thrusts are predictable, I can tank slashes with instant guard or use my own melee thrust to escape. If any of these 3 opponents have a shield, the difficulty spikes insanely high. Shields counter melee, and the pile bunker is no exception. It's infuriating when you have a charged bunk blocked by a shield that deploys while they're still technically staggered at the tail end of their staggered state. There is a trick where you can observe a shield AC's left arm as it fires its weapon. When they do, there's a gap in its defense where they can't deploy the pulse shield for a brief time. You can sneak in a majestic shot while they do this. Harris can also get an impact bonus during assault boost, so you can circle boost your opponent to throw off their focus and stagger them. The window to kick bunk a shield AC is only about 2 seconds, so always preemptively kick bunk if you're confident you can land it before the shield can deploy.
I'm Trash Panda. I'm just an average guy who likes video games. I use one fist, second fist, chainsaw in weapon bay on the back, and usually some kind of orbit on my right shoulder. At the moment I'm using HugeLeak. Because we're ahead, I need attitude stability and system recovery. Stun guns otherwise would absolutely stat check me, and there will be nothing I can do about them. So as far as attitude stability and system recovery goes, Head is the absolute best of both worlds. Plus it keeps me light. Nachtrager core, I use it mostly for the booster efficiency, as I'm melee cancelling a lot, sometimes with crit boost, sometimes with assault boost, but it helps a lot to keep me going for longer. Plus it's very light, which allows me to keep my weight below 62k, which is around the break point where melee is the fastest. Next up we have Basho arms, which are probably an obvious choice for a melee build. Extremely light, high AP, best melee damage in the game, no brainer. Unfortunately, with reverse joint legs, there are only 2 options. There is Mind Beta and Wrong. It has the best attitude stability of all reverse joints, fairly low weight. AP is not too bad, somewhat average stats for midweight legs. But the reverse joint kick is what I'm after, which is absolutely stellar, and if I manage to stagger someone with the kick, it lines up the altitude with mine, so it makes my subsequent stagger extend with fists much easier. Kikaku, I think that's an obvious choice for any melee-centric build. I know that Flugel got a buff recently, but lower melee attack thrust and much higher melee attack consumption, the other stats just don't make up for it when you're melee cancelling the whole way through, basically. My FCS, I don't need the FCS, I basically have it because I can't unequip it. Generator, very obvious choice, Santai. There is no other generator that works with melee builds. I tried to experiment with Mingtang, Lingtai, and even Yaba, but capacity is king. There is no way around it. The only generator that can compete with Santai is NGI, but NGI's downtime is absolute death sentence for melee builds. And I guess I can also comment again on Assault Armor as my expansion. It sometimes works. When it works, it's nice. The big but is just that sometimes it doesn't. The chainsaw attack always needs to be released when you're moving in some way. Otherwise, it just behaves in such weird ways. I prefer, personally, to quick boost to the side and release the attack in the middle of the quick boost, and that helps the chainsaw hit. For techniques that I've invented, Assault Boost Fart, or AB fart for short, which involves charging up the chainsaw, then using the right fist to melee, and then cancelling the melee with assault boost, and then releasing the charge chainsaw attack. Normally, you cannot assault boost at all if you're holding the chainsaw charging, and that's one way to get around it, but it only allows you to, for like a small fart of assault boost. It's good for changing elevation, and it also basically catapults you straight at the enemy with charge chainsaw, and not many people may know that, but charge chainsaw actually comes with a mini stun on each of its ticks of attack. One combo that I can use is landing a charged chainsaw from neutral, and then guarantees a stagger on any opponent it basically lands on, unless it's a main dish Boron tank. And since I'm using 2 fists, then I can use them to stagger extend into another chainsaw attack, but on a staggered opponent that's already in place. That's probably one of the scariest combos that people know of. And especially with pre-cancelling, it helps land raw chainsaw more often than any other technique. And another combo is the basic fist chase. I move at around 800 kilometers an hour when melee cancelling, so I have no trouble catching up to anyone. Landing chainsaw hits is very difficult, so usually I just stick to my normal punching until someone is staggered. And then, as you may be aware, fists can stagger extend up to 4 times. Fists don't work like other melee weapons if you have 2 fists. you can switch them around so that as you attack with one, the other one is cooling down. You can essentially extend it to as long as you want. Against tanks, I absolutely need to go in with the raw chainsaw stagger first, as they just have way too much firepower for me to handle. It's basically just raw chainsaw into stagger extend into chainsaw, and for anything else, it's usually fists into the chainsaw. That kills almost everything in the game. I don't know what else to add.
My name is Pandaman. I am a tech fanatic since day one. I'm Japanese, but job opportunities allow me to speak Japanese, English, and even Chinese pretty fluently. I've never touched an AC game, in honesty, before AC6, but AC6 has made me fall in love with the series. I'm also one of the organizers for the NA/JP weekly tournament called Panda Cup. We wanted to make it faster than regular tournaments, combine it with my relationships with the JP community, and we would have a sort of like a JP and a combination that would bring the best out of both worlds. I sport the Coral Oscillator and Smoke. Those two have a lot of synergies with each other. The Oscillator is a very special weapon to me because I discovered a lot of tech concerning the weapon, so it holds a very special spot in my heart. I chose the Mind Alpha core because it gave the highest EN efficiency and EN recharge speed without sacrificing too much stability. I chose the C3 Melander legs because it was light, EN efficient, but it also provided an acceptable levels of stability and defense. I chose the Basho arm because of the Oscillator. I chose Mind Beta because it gave a lot of stability that compensated for how light this build is. And I chose the VPMs and the Pafal because Pafal was really OP back then before the nerfs. Internals, I'm using Santai, Missile CS, and Purzo. Alright, so the Demon Blade actually is like a tree more than like a single tech. It uses like camera manipulation. So the first one is like, you know, the regular Demon Blade where you go manual aim and then you turn your camera around to your right so that it spins around fast. But you can actually camera manipulate in a way where it'll turn to the left and behind you. You can also do a thing where you would skip the hitbox in front of you, where you would make the hitbox of the Oscillator miss in front of you, but it would hit the side. So for example, if a BVO was coming to me last season, I would use that so that it would not hit him in the front. You know, when they scoot around me super fast, it would hit them because sometimes regular Demon Blade is too slow for BVO. There's also a Demon Blade technique where you can slow down the regular Oscillator speed, and this is really good for bypassing shields sometimes because when you use Oscillator, you actually like the charge Oscillator, you kind of move a bit forward, right? So what happens is, let's say a Zim shield is coming towards you, you don't want to do a Demon Blade because it's too easy to IG that. So when they move towards you, you slow down your Oscillator so animation moves you forward a bit and it hooks you around and bypasses that 180-degree shield in front of them. There's also recently discovered manual aim first Demon Blade. So this one is actually more of an improved version of the regular Demon Blade. Essentially, you no longer need to turn your camera, so you have full situational awareness of everything that's happening in front of you. And you end with lock, which is really good if you want to follow up with something. It might sacrifice a lot of your attacking potential, but it offers incredible defense. So first of all, I can confidently say with the jamming bomb, I can beat any rat. Basically 100% counters rat. Like, I don't think I've ever lost to a rat before. You also get an advantage against floaters because they have to come to you and they don't want to do that. Their boosters are usually made for floating and running away. But how I use the jamming bomb is I could like sometimes bait out their missile. For example, if they have a missile and I have a missile, I would let them intentionally lock onto me and then shoot the puff-out and then I would smoke. And then the missiles would miss me and I would go out of the smoke and hit them with missiles myself. Another way I would use it is during ratting. What happens is if the enemy is too close to me and I turn around, don't have the time to fire a missile, I would simply just fire the smoke ahead of ground in front of me and then land in that spot and then just wait for my EN to recharge and then run away again. The third method would be I would smoke behind me while I'm aiming towards the direction, mid-air, so that the enemy's missiles, for example like a 10 cell from a Zim shield, would miss entirely and I would have like a few more seconds of breathing time without expending unnecessary QB at the end.
Thermidor, from New York, and I've been playing Armored Core since the first one. Yeah, I've played all of them. The only one I haven't played was Verdict Day. The 10 cell has way better tracking for the vertical movement enemies, and any mid to heavyweights, they're just gonna get hit by the 10 cells. So I'm able to keep the pressure with my stagger. So if I need to be patient, wait it out until one of my blades are off cooldown, I can go in, chase with the tensile, get a hit, and get my stagger that I need to finish them off in like one combo.
What about the Coral Oscillator did you like?
The charge attack. The charge attack was like my favorite thing. I was like, oh my god, it's a giant beam. Oh, I need this.
What about the Zimmerman and Pulse Blade?
The Pulse does a lot of damage against staggered enemies, and the Zimmerman is a very strong impact damaging weapon, and it also extends stagger, so it just combos really well with both the blades. Just use the basic melee canceling. Honestly, most of the things I do, it's like paying attention to my opponent, what they have, what they use, and how they play, honestly. Let's start with the head, the VP44D. It has good AP, good defenses, and good stability. Plus, it looks really cool on the AC. For the leg parts, the VP422, which is lightweight mid part. For the boosters, it's Kikaku's. Obviously, it's a melee build. For the core, I use HAL. It has a lot of output and supply, so it makes the EN recharge delay very short for like a midweight build. To me, it's one of the best cores for a midweight build. And obviously the arms are Basho for melee. FCS is Ocellus for the Zimmerman, and Sentai because you have to use Sentai. And then the expansion, since I'm the only nut, I use Assault Armor. Assault Armor, when it works, applies a ton of pressure. It's like if they pop PA, Assault Armor is just gonna break it and they're just gonna extend the combo for me. So it's like even tanks have to be careful when they pop PA, because I can Assault Armor and then just one Zimmerman or one kick, and then they're staggered again and I can just use my blades again.
Do you have any bread and butter combos?
It actually depends on the type of build. So for a lightweight, I would either start with the Pulse Blade. The Charged Pulse Blade into Zimmerman will usually just stagger a lightweight. Into the Oscillator, into Assault Armor is automatically a death for them. For a heavyweight, such as like a tank, I usually approach with a charged Oscillator or Pulse Blade and just keep pressure without staggering them until the Oscillator is back on cooldown. So once that's back up, I would stagger with a shotgun. So then I would start with Oscillator, shotgun to extend the stagger, charge Pulse Blade into Assault Armor, and that usually does 10 to 13k damage. For midweights, I can just do the basic stun with Oscillator, extend with Zimmerman into Pulse Blades, double swipe. From there, I can extend it with either another Zimmerman or a kick into Zimmerman. For shield users, it really depends if my opponent knows how to use their shield. You can tell when there's a bad shield user is when you do a melee attack and you cancel it. You can count how many times they use the shield. Like some people that are really bad, they'll just spam it. You'll use it twice and notice, oh, he didn't swing with it. So from there, you can, alright, I'm just gonna cancel, scare him to overheat the shield. Once the shield is overheated, then you can go in on him. With more skilled players, you would need to pretty much time their left-handed shotgun or whatever they're using with your melee. So that way they can't shield because they're firing their left arm. Shield users that actually know how to fight is literally almost impossible to beat them. 80% mitigation, that's insane. So it's like melee weapons do like basically nothing. For vertical movement and kites, again, it's really chasing them down. I mainly use Assault Boost and just pressure with the Zimmerman. Oscillator does really well with vertical movement because it's the only blade that actually has a vertical hit. So from there, it's timing your Assault Armor against their Pulse Armor when they do it in the air. And with the Tensile, actually, it helps so much. I don't know if you know, but there's a few missiles that actually track insanely well that they can even go backwards. Tensile does that, and so does MLT. Missiles are really hard to dodge if you're trying to just go all around them and all that, because they will track you behind you. These missiles are really hard to dodge if you're trying to just go all around them and all that, because they will track you behind you.
I really think Fish has the advantage here because the shotguns is
Huge
such a
damage
nasty
on
matchup.
Fish there.
Oh!
That's huge.
But that's,
It is actually gigantic.
What the
Oh my god, the full melee combo! The full combo!
I'm Moonlit Blaze. I'm the resident melee lunatic. I think I'm probably huffing more coral than the rest of the people who play melee combined. For a living, I'm actually a master student in chemistry. I'm only a couple months away, actually, from finishing my thesis. Mine's in brewing science, so beer. It's food chemistry. And then I saw the Armored Core games one time at a GameStop, picked up 4 and 4 Answer, played those, and I just kind of fell in love with the customization, the control scheme, the complexity, and I realized I'd like missed the bus for the multiplayer era of it, and I was just so sad. So when I heard that there was AC6, I'm like, oh heck yes, I'm gonna be able to get in during prime time with this. I'm not gonna be a year or two late like last time. So my melee combo is the Pulse Blade and the Pile Bunk. The reason being, I wanted a melee opener, and the Pile Bunker, no matter how much I try to make it, will always suck at melee opener. It can chase. It just has a very, very tiny friggin' hitbox on the light attack, so good luck landing that reliably. And I realized the Pulse Blade's great for chasing and landing that first hit. Now all I need is a follow-up, and then I got Zim, and I'm like, okay, so stagger, swap, Pile Bunk. How do I make that? And from there, my right shoulder became a flex slot. I am willing to put whatever I can in there to make it work. I want to keep my EN regen over 3.5k. Ideally, I want around 1800 stagger, VP44D head, Mind Alpha core, Basho arms, the Fortu legs, Kaku, Ocellus, of course, and Santai. And I use Assault Armor. I use Assault Armor for hyper aggression, and mainly because most of the time I found myself using Pulse Armor, it was defensively because I was losing. And anytime I used Pulse Armor to push a lead, I could have also just nuked them with Assault Armor and won on the first stagger. And I'm willing to take that gamble just due to how my build plays, because when I use Pulse Armor defensively, I still usually end up losing. I use a lot of tech that others use. Like, I make great use of, well, I hope great. I'm not as good at it as he is, but Bort's pre-cancel tech, I try and make as much use of that as I can. But the tech I invented is Ghostblade. Yes, that is an edgy name, but I named it after the only melee tech that existed at the time, Pandaman's Demon Blade. Ghostblade is a pivot tech, basically. So it takes advantage of my experience with the Souls series and something known as dead angling, which basically let you bypass shields and hit enemies behind you by manipulating the camera and the angles of attack. With Ghostblade, I just wiggle my camera like crazy sometimes and notice that I could kind of hit people where I really shouldn't, where you have your camera pointing at the end of Pulse Blade charge attack, and almost any melee really, but it's really prominent with Pulse Blade, heavily impacts where your hitbox actually is versus your visual model. And as a result, I figured out ways to catch people who do the standard Pulse Blade dodge, which is you dodge to the right, their left, because Pulse Blade swings from left to right. I basically figured out a way to just take that left to right swing and rotate it like 45 degrees and smack them right in the face. And I'd also like to give co-credit to The Fast for being the best punching bag imaginable. I would not have been able to make that tech without being able to spar against him and his movement, and him constantly adapting to my movement, forcing me to adapt to his, and just creating this evolutionary arms race of melee versus dodge. Nightfall was my practice to learn to not commit, back off, and then commit again, to like kind of just stagger my commitment enough to not get punished. Because Nightfall just input reads, but Nightfall will never cancel an input. These are the 3 combos that I use the most often. One is charged Pulse Blade into Zimmerman into Pile Bunk. It's lethal on anything that's not ultra heavyweight. That is my bread and butter combo, and for lack of a better term, it's a skill check. If you can't avoid that, I will win. You can slot Assault Armor in there at any point based on when they decide to pulse on. And that's going to be true for all the other combos here. Slot Assault Armor in, because you can use Assault Armor to cancel melee attacks and not put them on cooldown. Second combo is what I call my reverse combo. And this is the one where my pile bunker is the opener. And this is what happens when I land a cheeky raw bunk because I got a good read, or I see someone who uses a very telegraphed option like Oscillator and I know they're looking for a charged attack with it. Because most builds will be instant staggered or near instant staggered by a raw charged pile bunk. And then I can just follow up with a Zim, usually 2 stagger, and then 2 light pulse blades because it does more damage than 1 charged. And that actually deals more damage than my first combo and kills a lot of people. It called the reverse because instead of me finishing with pile, I start with it. The third combo is what I use against kites and lambs. And I call it my pick off combo because I purge the pile bunker. And the combo is basically chase after them and play like I'm a Zim field. I'm just gonna hit them with the Zim repeatedly. And anytime we pass, I flick around and hit them with a light pulse blade, 1 tap. I don't do the second. Unless it staggers, then I do the second. But I hit them with that until I get them staggered. I'm then gonna fist them 3 times, Zim again, and then the pulse blade's back and ready for use so I can hit them with the pulse blade again. Melee is not gonna have really any good matchups. You just need to play aggressive and take the tempo from people. Jump scare them, for lack of a better term, close in. If you see someone turn around, you want it to make it so that when they turn back around, you're staring them eye to eye.
I'm Big 666, aka Big Flare, aka Plus, aka HugeLeak. I'm a software engineer and a music producer, but only one of those things makes me money. I live in North Carolina, so I'm a Southern boy. Been playing Armored Core for a few years now, and then got sucked into Armored Core Discord and all of the goofy drama and the goofy community. And then at some point, I got convinced to play in Rubicon Rumble #1. Striker's really big, first tourney. And I've just been playing in the tourney scene since then because it's just been super fun, and I love the PvP community. It's a big shit fest, I'm gonna be honest, but I love it. I'm a Coral Oscillator and Pulse Blade player, first and foremost. Everything else on my build is just support for those 2 weapons. So I use Zimmerman and Huxley for the most part. Zimmerman, of course, just the most broken shotgun, does a ton of stagger damage. Huxley is really expensive energy-wise, but it does maintain stagger and also deal stagger a bunch. So it's a really great tool to have between my melee attacks, because obviously the main source of damage on double melee build is the melee. It's the optimal melee pairing because both weapons are viable options in neutral and also during stagger punish. So when one blade is on cooldown, the other is available for movement or for damage. It is the melee cancel build. If you want to close the gap between your opponent really quickly, if you want to fly past them with melee cancels, this is the build for it. Man, I'm definitely not cool enough to have invented any tech myself. It's not exactly tech, but I will often assault boost into an oscillator swing. Oscillator is a little slow on the dash, so you can kind of make up for that by assault boosting and then tilting your stick left or right to get the assault boost dash, and then engaging normal oscillator out of that. It's basically just getting 3 boosts into 1 oscillator hit, specifically for lightweights. That's a really good tool. If you're fighting someone on knocked legs and lamb core, they're never going to be able to get hit by pulse blade, so increasing the speed of your oscillator approach is your best option. So I run Shade Eye Head, Mind Alpha Core, Basho Arms, of course, and Howl Legs with Santai and Kikaku. And of Zealous, of course. I specifically run Mind Alpha Core for the ability to cross the 1800 stability threshold. 1800 stability is really important for squeezing out 1 or 2 more actions per engagement before I get staggered. That one action is usually the difference between staggering my opponent and then being able to follow that up with a combo to death, or if I get staggered, then I'm probably gonna die. So having as much stability as physically possible while maintaining a reasonable speed is the most important part of my build. Because of that, and because of how energy expensive it is for Oscillator and Huxley, 3000 energy efficiency, and that's what Shade Eye is for. Shade Eye is a really middle of the road head, but it's cheap on energy and doesn't get absolutely destroyed by stun guns. So it's a pretty viable option for a lot of builds. I do use Kikaku because because the majority of my movement in neutral is through melee canceling, and I need to have the speed while I'm doing that. A great way to dodge, it's a great way to disengage. Bort's pre-canceling tech allows you to use the blades for movement outside of lock. With melee weapons, the dash is pretty reliant on locking onto your opponent so that you can move towards them. If you're not locked on, your mech will just swing the sword. But if you pre-cancel out of the swing, then you're able to move without lock, and Kikaku moves you the furthest. I actually learned a lot of my combos from Thermidor. I would say double melee builds, the techniques are pretty situationally dependent. If the engagement is fresh and you want to be aggressive, it's charged Pulse Blade for mini stagger into Zimmerman to stagger, then normal Oscillator into Zimmerman into kick for the punish. That's pretty much your entire EN bar, and then you probably have like one quick boost to get away after that. But that's just for a fresh engagement. If you've been building up stagger or kind of like playing passive for a moment and your opponent has 25% of his stagger build up or like half of his stagger bar up, then you could do Oscillator into stagger into a Zimmerman shot for the extension, and then it's a double Pulse Blade swipe followed by another Zim shot into kick. I see a lot of people will do a double Pulse Blade hit directly into kick because they don't think Zimmerman's gonna be reloaded by then, but the great thing about Zim is that the 2-second reload time, it's like the perfect timing between hitting an Oscillator and then Zim, double Pulse Blades, and then another Zim. The great thing about the Oscillator and Pulse Blade combo is that you can pretty much plan out which weapon you need to use based on your opponent's weight. So midweights and lightweights, you want to attack with Oscillator first because it's going to deal probably 75% of their stagger bar, and then you can just use Huxley and Zimmerman to stagger them. But for like heavyweights and tanks and tetras, you want to start with Pulse Blade or Charged Pulse Blade because that will mini stagger them and allow you to start with like a larger chunk of their stagger bar filled up.
Hey, my name is Loyalbones. I'm Canadian. I currently work in sales, and I've been playing Armored Core since I was a kid. 4 and 4 Answer ate me alive, dude. I could not escape those games. They have truly infected. Oh my god, dude. When I play games like Battlefield where they have emblem creators, my brain is like, oh, I miss my Armored Core stuff, dude. And so the release of Armored Core 6 has just been like a breath of fresh air.
I heard you reached S rank with melee only, no other weapons.
Didn't shoot a bullet, dude. From unranked to S, not a single shot fired. Honestly, the most important part about the climb was getting used to the game's movement and finding answers for specific opponent movements. Like, you can punish a lot of stuff. Vertical movement is actually so easy to punish with melee once you've kind of done it for 400 hours. Because there is always a ceiling, dude. They cannot keep going up. The moment they touch that ceiling, they're caught. And with the Santai having such a huge gas tank and no other generator being viable, you can chase them up. It takes a bit of practice learning how to stairway and learning how to like actually climb up there to hit them. When I first started climbing, I wanted to have my experience be like a litmus test for pure melee in a, at least maybe not competitive setting, but competitively viable setting. On ladder with pure melee, there are matchups that are so winnable, and then there are matchups that you just lose. You've seen an opponent with a shield, and if they breathe air, they will probably beat you. If you see a full tank, you are committing so much health to stagger them that by the time you have to do your second like combo cycle, their health isn't even below half, and you're probably dead by then. So really, a large portion of the climb was really hoping to see builds that I could even remotely win against, a small percentage chance, and then capitalizing on that. I've got clips on my Twitch where I'm dodging entire like missile kits out of tanks to like close a gap with 1 HP. It's such an exhilarating feeling too. That was another thing that motivated me so much, is feeling victory from the jaws of just impossible, utter like, oh, we pushed the rock up the hill, dude. And it's just such a satisfying feeling when you do make it, when you crest that edge, when you finally hit S, when you finally beat an opponent that you saw on the screen. You're like, oh yeah, I lost in the garage, it's over. And you still knock them down. That shit is a drug, dude. Okay, so let's go over the butt sword and the why it's the main. It's the most neutrally viable. In neutral game, it has the best movement tool, which is its heavy. The best thing about its heavy is during the startup animation, you still maintain momentum that you had previously. So you can like micro cancel butt sword heavies and climb or move horizontally so fast. compared to the light sure might have better startup frames in the initial swing, but when you're chaining them sequentially to approach, the heavy is so much more EN efficient. It is my movement tool. Either the heavy on the butt sword or punches are all I use for neutral, because I don't run a gun. The hammer is my secondary because it is not only a hyper viable critical tool, but it doesn't miss. You can use it to chip Lammergeyers, you can use it by melee canceling in with the fist and then flicking the hammer out. There are scenarios where it will rob you on purpose because the hammer is a paid actor and it doesn't want any happiness or fun to happen around it. So the moment you start getting complacent, the hammer will just like take a giant in your forehead and you're just like, oh, okay, I guess I'll just miss then, forehead. Oh my god. I think the one that should be the most well-known, but I'm going to share anyways, would be using punch micro feints. If you drop your primary firearm and you have the fist out with your weapons on your left, punch has the second fastest startup animation in the game for melee cancels, beaten out only by the baton. It goes baton and then punch and then dagger, and because the baton is so rat shit garbage, nobody would ever in their right mind use that. No one ever, dude. I tried really hard to run the baton in neutral and it just will not land. The butt hammer combo. To land the butt hammer, you have to enter the combo with a heavy. This is in neutral, by the way. If you land a heavy butt sword swipe on your opponent, you can then boost cancel out of the backswing of the heavy butt sword swipe, hot swap to the hammer as fast as you can, and then mash the attack input. And if done correctly, with the inputs will all buffer and the hammer will come out fast enough to land before the stagger decay of the heavy swipe. It gives you 2010 stagger burst, allowing you to instantaneously stagger any opponent below 2000 stability. If you can assault armor the opponent, you can butt hammer the opponent. It is pretty spotty to make it consistent because not only do you have to land a butt sword heavy, but you then have to correctly predict the direction your opponent's going to boost out of the combo, because if you do not, you will get outside of hammer range. So not only do you have to land the heavy, you have to read your opponent's movement, then do these super quick inputs to get the light hammer out, and upon connecting, then you can just punch combo them into another hammer combo, and for like a super reliable kill on almost anything below 200 or 2000 stability. It's the king of killing Lammergeyer kites. Oh my god, if you hate Lammergeyers, butt hammer them. Oh, they can't do anything. Quads are the most vulnerable build in the game to this combo, because when you get hit by a heavy swipe on the butt sword, you exit hover mode and lose all of your movement, and you're just like slowly floating there. My primary build, Blue Shift, the AC that I used to reach S rank, is a Mind Beta head, because it has the highest stability out of all heads. It's also quite light and EN efficient. Three most important stats for pure melee. You need weight, stability, and EN efficiency. You need that gas tank. The longer it takes your EN to come back, the longer you are spending waiting to approach and being shot at. You need EN to melee cancel, evade, to even deal damage. Without EN, you don't get to hit your opponent, and melee requires that to win. Actually, every build does. But my core is always and will always be Nachrider core. The Nachrider core is so insanely boost EN efficient. It is the second lightest core in the game. And then I run Santai because there's no other viable option. I run Basho because there's no other viable option. And then I run the Mesa legs. Not only are they lighter than Nachrider, but they are also more durable and have higher stability. And so that is the reason I run them. Most, if not all, melee fights will end up in the air against sentient opponents. If anyone who knows how to play the game is engaging melee on the ground, they are making a mistake. You should be vertically kiting at all times. And the only way to catch a vertical kite is to be as light and EN efficient as possible. That is why I run for Mesa legs. The FCS actually doesn't interact with any melee weapon outside of the Moonlights. So I run the like P010 or something like that, the worst possible, because it is the lightest and the lowest EN draw. I am so thirsty for EN, bro. It is, I literally live by that little bar at the bottom of my screen. If that's near the bottom, I am probably dying, or my opponent is dying.
What booster do you run and why?
Oh, Kikak. There's no other viable off. If your primary offensive tool is a melee weapon, run Kikakus. If what you use in neutral is the melee, Kikakus. If what you use in neutral is a gun, Flugels. Period. My community has a spreadsheet on our Discord that you can consult for stagger combo state. So combo state is a 1,000 point health bar, and all melee interactions with you while you're staggered detract from it. When it reaches 0, you are no longer staggered. That's why you can only land 4 punches, and then the 5th punch, the opponent gets to leave the combo. It's a very specific mechanic. So punches have 240 stagger value, meaning if you land 4 punches, the opponent is still below 1,000 for stagger state. The 5th punch will knock them out of the combo. There are specific interactions that don't care about this state. For example, Zimmerman's stagger extensions are like completely, it's 0. It doesn't detract. So the longest combo in AC6 is a 12 hit combo where you initiate the stagger with a kick. Once your opponent is staggered with a kick, then you go Haldeman punch, Haldeman punch, Haldeman punch, Haldeman punch, Haldeman, and then you finish with a either bunk or chainsaw for like the most egregious amount of damage you could ever imagine.
Do you have tips against specific matchups?
Yeah. If you see a shield, just disconnect. Just give up, forehead. Oh my god, it's so soul crushing. 6 parries, dude. Come on, dude. For an honest, real answer, the build that I see people have the most trouble with fighting as melee users is vertical kites. And the best answer I can give is open up a lobby with a friend of yours who knows how to kite vertically and just practice. You just need to ingrain it in your movement. I could sit down and try and explain the nuances behind certain approach vectors, when and how you should use the butt sword heavy to like slide past your opponent, like slingshotting movement kind of thing, what angles you should like look for, movement that you should look for, and how to counter move it. But really it will just come down to play the shit out of that matchup. Just lose. Fuck it, man. You gotta lose over and over against vertical kites until you can reliably land your combo on a like vertical swapper. You're never gonna beat a regular vertical kite. Turn off. Oh my god. Hey guys, what's up? Leave no evidence. Anyone sees you.
So the paint job takes inspiration from my original build. The original build I had used like a green, kind of like a greenish paint to kind of match, I guess, All Mind. I always thought like being like a hunter for All Mind would be pretty cool. The last ending, that's kind of like who you're working for. His name is Inhibit Progress, so credit goes to him, man. He designed a logo for the AC's name, Wind Shear. On that logo is like a diagram of what a wind shear actually is. There's like the sudden change of direction, usually impacting planes like negatively. Like it causes planes to crash. The AC being named Wind Shear, it moves how a plane would normally move to crash, but instead of you being the one crashing, it's usually the opponent crashing, as if they're encountering a wind shear.
My AC is loosely inspired by Headbringer, as piloted by G5 Iguazu with a twist. With both the Melander AC set and the Ashmead being Balaam Industries' product, it looks perfect when combined due to their emphasis on rectangular design. Unfortunately, in my opinion, Melander arms look out of place, because they look like they have oversized pauldrons relative to the proportion of the Melander core. Basho arms fit better as they don't look as large, while maintaining that rectangular shape. Coincidentally, it also happens to have the best melee speculation to boot. It's also a nod to the early generation AC with a similar design philosophy as Balaam. Of course, I'm talking about the Crest Industries Close Combat AC.
That was the first decal I've done. It actually came from a different AC that I was using for different challenge runs. Before I started multiplayer, I was doing some no-hit challenge runs on some lightweight ACs. And the chains around the Basho arms were one of the first decals I've done, and I've kept them around for every iteration of the AC. So that's like one of the things that never changed.
My favorite animal is pandas. I did volunteer work for them. I am too lazy to do any sort of actual paint job or decal work on my AC, so I just defaulted to having black and white. I have 2 decals on my left and right shoulder. One is to symbolize the Anti-Shield Society, colloquially called ASH, and the other one is a very awesome fangirl of mine that made this for me. Born to Jam, world is a kite them all. I am Pandaman.
Anders J is actually the name of the friend that gave me the book, because he gave me the framework. It's called Oni and it has a dagger. I don't like the dagger. At the time, I didn't know how to use the dagger. So I was like, you know what? I'll use a pulse blade because I'm used to pulse blade.
Japanese Oni. So that's the inspiration for mine. I realized that a lot of the way I play is similar to just going straight at someone and just hitting buttons. I've always been a fan of like monsters and mythos in all kinds of culture, and I realized just with the way that like armored cores are designed, and like also there's Gurren Lagann that has the face on all their mechs, that Mind Alpha Core, like I could put some teeth on that and make it look like an Oni's mouth. With the bent teeth, it fit well with like the feast or famine vibe that my playstyle really represents. Either I'm going to do really, really well, or I'm going to do really, really, really bad. My AC's built a design off Japanese Oni and asymmetry in general. I have a asymmetrical design for my color schemes.
I originally got my color scheme from the Nier Automata menus. I really like the user interface for the menus. Like, it's a really cool, like, sand and brown kind of color. So I started from there and kind of tweaked those RGB values so that it felt like a little more original, especially because it kind of got a little dusty when it was like on the AC and it takes damage. So I went with like a little bit of a lighter gray. For the decals on my mech, I kind of was thinking like, oh, what if Adidas made a mech? Like, how would they design that? So it's kind of just like some fake corporate branding and like big chunky colors and stripes and some text, but not like a ton. I didn't want my build to go too far into Gunpla territory, but I wanted to have some decals. I take the look of my mech very seriously. It's kind of like not what you would expect someone named Big 666 to be rocking.
I'm also a huge science nerd, and when you're measuring the speed of the cosmos, when something's approaching you, the hue of it shifts towards blue. And so, because my melee build is basically as fast as you can get in AC6, the idea that the blue side of the AC is always facing my opponent, because I use hard lock, makes me, it just feels really good. It makes my brain feel good, dude. Plus, I love, my whole aesthetic is eyeball rot. I love like extreme hyper contrast. This AC is so visually tethered to my stream and to me that no matter who's gonna use it, people will see it and be like, oh god, that's Bones' hunk of shit AC.
My AC has the word Bort on it.
I'm 750 hours into Armored Core 6. I'm still not sure if I would call myself a fan. I do not tell my chainsaw what to do. The chainsaw tells me what I do. Yeah. So yeah, whatever the chainsaw wills, that happens. Sometimes chainsaw decides to spare people. Sometimes chainsaw thinks that chest bump is the appropriate course of action.
I was gonna make a video of when rank came out of all the streamers I sniped, and I made them fail promos. There is one of Oro.
Oh boy. Oh, Thermidor's my first S rank fight. How fitting. I believe. Fuck, I don't believe anymore. Yep, that's game. Fuck. Come on. Something nice. Oh! This motherfucker. I'm dead. One mistake.
Yeah, and that ended his promo. So he had to end the stream.